Let's take a look at some iteration statements in Java. We'll look at the while loop, the do while loop, the for loop using the comma, and the for each version of the for loop. Okay. For our first loop, let's look at while. We're going to do a simple countdown. So we'll start by initiating the value here n, 10, and then we'll just do the while loop. So while some condition is true, execute. So our condition here will be while n is greater than or equal to 0, we're going to have this line of code execute. For this, we'll just go ahead and do a simple printout. Alright, we're going to print out n, and then we're going to decrement n at each step of the loop. Let's go ahead and run. Alright, here we can see now the countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay. It's a basic syntax for the while loop. Let's take a look at the do while loop. Okay. Let's do a count with the do loop. So again, we'll need a variable here to track, well, not track, but to meet our condition in this piece. And one thing too with the do loop is we'll execute at least once. So let's go ahead and do this. But let's use while k is not equal to 11. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our k variable. We'll start it off at 0. Okay, and again we'll just do a simple print. Print. We'll go ahead and just do it in the line. We'll print out k with a little bit of space to keep it clean here, and then semicolon, and then k plus plus. All right, and then of course we also need a semicolon here on the end of our while loop. All right, let's go ahead and execute that. See what that looks like. Okay, so this is our first for loop. Then here is our do while. I'm sorry, this is our first while loop, and this is our do while loop here. You can see that it's counting up. Okay, and the thing with the do loop is that it will execute at least once before it checks for the condition. And now let's take a look at our for loop. So our for loop, let's just do a simple count again. But this time we can declare the variables inside in the initialization block. So let's go ahead and declare I equals 0 while I is less than, let's say 10, I plus plus. Okay, let's go ahead and print. Let's print new lines, and we'll add a little string here. So the value of I is an I. Okay. All right, here we go. Let's go ahead and execute that. Run it. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so again, our for loop here is we have an initialization of our variable I. We have the condition where I is less than 10, and then we have the iteration. So each iteration, the I increments by 1. Okay. Now the for loop using the comma, this is very useful for loop for when you have two variables, for example, and you want the two variables to maybe meet in between. You can do that in the initialization section of the for loop. So we'll take a quick look at this. We'll start with the for loop. We'll create two variables. We'll call that A. We'll start A at 0. We'll create a B variable. We'll go ahead and start that at 10. Okay. Here's the important piece. we don't use a semicolon, we're going to use a comma. Okay, so we're going to initialize and declare and initialize a equal to 0, b equal to 10. While a is less than b is our condition, we're going to increment a by 1, comma, b decrement by 1. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and print the values as they're happening here. So as we're going through the loop, the value of a, oh well, actually let's do a equals a and b equals b. Let's not forget our semicolon here. Okay, so we're going to run this. We can see here that they should meet in the middle, which is 5. So the loop should run until a is equal to 5 and b is equal to 5. At which time that this condition will no longer be true. So let's go ahead and run that. Okay, here we see it. So a starts 0, b starts 10. They work their way until a is 5 and b is 5, and then that's no longer true, so the loop stops. Okay, and this is can be useful for whatever thing you may need for that. Let's go ahead and run through the for each version of the for loop. Let's work with an array here. We're going to go ahead and transverse an array. Okay, let's go ahead and fill this in. 5, 7, 8, 9. All right. All right. So let's go ahead and do our for loop. Again, we'll just simply print something out. Let's go ahead and do this. So first we will declare a variable to store our elements from our array. So it's an int. Let's just call this x. And then we're going to get this from num. Okay. Let's go ahead and do a simple print out here. And then we'll go ahead and do x, right? So that's the x's value. X variable is holding the value of our element as it's transversing. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Run it. All right, so here we see it. So each version of the for loop is sequential, so it will run through the entire array. You may also notice that I didn't use the curly brackets. That's because this is just a one line. It's just one line code here, so you don't really need that. The compiler knows that you don't need it. It's just for this for loop. You can definitely add it. Let's go ahead and add it here. Okay. Another useful thing here is if you don't want it to run through the entire array, we can actually create an if statement. So if x is equal to 5, for example, we can actually break out of this for loop. So let's go ahead and run that to see what that looks like. Okay, and now we can see here that just runs 0 through 4 because now when x is equal to 5, it just breaks out of this loop. Okay, so that's the for each version of the for loop. Okay, and that's it.